Hello everyone. In this video, we're gonna show how Hive works using the Hive platform, and we're gonna use two data files, which is drivers and timesheet. So the drivers file would have all the data related to the drivers. I'll just show you. I've uploaded the files on the Hive browser, and you can see the drivers CSV file here, which gives the driver ID, the name, the SSN location, and the wage plan. And the other file is the timesheet file, which shows us the hours and the miles driven by a particular driver and in a particular week. So we're essentially going to use these two files and use Hive to query and to manipulate this data. So we're going to see how to create a table using Hive queries, then load the data into those tables, and then use some more complex queries like join the two tables to produce a particular data table. So first we would create like a temporary table. So here are all the queries that I'm going to be using. So I'll create a temporary table called temp drivers, and so this is basically the Hive editor, but this is the query editor. The database tables are here, and this is where you see the results and the logs. So I would execute this query, and you can see the result. It has no operation since it's just simply creating a table. So you can refresh the database and have a look at whether this table has been created. So you see temp drivers here. You can click here to see what the table contents are. There's no table contents right now. So next part is to load this data using a query. So my data is stored in this path, and it says override into table temp drivers. So now I would execute this query, and successfully executed. Now I can check the contents of my table, and data has been loaded into it. You can see the data is loaded in forms of strings. So our next step would be to use regular expressions. So first we'll create another table called drivers, which would load all of this data. It's just creating a table structure where there's driver ID, name, SSN location, certified, and wage plan. And let's see if the table is created. I'll have to refresh this database, and you see drivers has been created here. It must be an empty table, but since we've not loaded any kind of data on this. And since you saw the temporary table had full strings instead of all columns, we're going to use regular expressions to split those strings into each of the individual attributes of the columns that we have and put them into our table drivers. So we'll execute this query, and so it's created a MapReduce job, which you can go to the job browser and see, and I can then check my drivers table and see if it has been successfully been implemented. If you can see the data in the drivers table, that means your query worked well, and it has all the contents that you need from the right from the CSV file to the temporary table, then using regular expressions to put it into your normal relational table. It's not yet completed the job yet. You can just go into the job browser and check, and it shows that it's been successfully implemented. So I'll go back to my query editor, and see the drivers table, and now you can see the data has been loaded according to each of the columns. So this drivers table is now ready to be used. Now we'll create a new timesheet table. So similarly, we'll create a temporary table called timesheet, and it shows that it's been created. Let's check. Yes, it's been created. And now similarly, we'll load the data. We'll give it the path to load the CSV file, and execute this query. And now maybe we can see the timesheet data into the temporary table. Yes, there it is. I would then create a new table called timesheet, and after creating the table we would again similarly use regular expressions to split those data like we did previously for the drivers table. And you can see a similar kind of a query here where timesheet table would have all the contents that it needs. And again it's going to the job browser. I think I'm happy to use job for this. Our next query would be actually summing up the hours and the miles driven by a particular driver. So we would use aggregate functions in our query, and let's see if it shows that it's been executed. So we can go to timesheet table and see if the data is loaded correctly. Yes, you can see the driver ID, the week, and the hours logged and the miles logged. And now we would like to use our aggregate functions to calculate the sum of the hours and sum of the miles by each driver ID. So how many miles and how many hours each driver has driven the vehicle. And we'll just wait for this to execute. Here you can see the sum of all the miles and the hours run by each of the drivers by the driver ID. So our next query, final query, would be a join on the two tables, where you would see the driver name along with the total hours and the miles driven by the driver. So just so this is our join query, and executing that. So here we can see the results where the driver ID along with driver name shows the total hours and the total miles driven by each of these drivers. And yes, so in this tutorial we have successfully used Hive to query our data, right from creating the temporary table, then loading the data, and then splitting those strings using our regular expressions, creating tables with all the individual columns, and then performing complex queries to join our data and display manipulate our data. So thank you for watching this video.